So good day, everyone. My name is Anthony Mills. I'm the Executive Director of Global Innovation Institute. As most of you know who are here, who will be watching this recording, Global Innovation Institute is the world's leading professional certification, business accreditation, and membership organization in the field of applied business innovation. And we continue to work with individuals and organizations around the world to try to really promote the profession of innovation and innovation leadership by helping individuals develop capabilities and organizations collectively develop capabilities for promoting and sustaining innovation within the organization. Today, I will be presenting to you, and the subject of the presentation is the Certified Innovative University Accreditation. Let me share my screen, and I will share that. And so you should be seeing that now. And so with that, let me move in. If there's any issues with the presentation or with seeing any of this, please let me know. But I'm assuming everyone is seeing it properly. So to start with, let me give you a little bit of introduction. Let me make sure I'm in the application. So I want to introduce you to what is the Certified Innovative University Accreditation. Certified Innovative University, or CINU, is GINI's accreditation that affirms that a specific university has embraced and demonstrated advanced practices for empowering innovation and entrepreneurship in its ecosystem on behalf of its stakeholders, especially its students. That's the nature of this accreditation. And I'll add as a side note that we at GINI have worked with a number of individuals in the academic community who are involved with really leading universities and ensuring they have appropriate innovation programs and activities to promote innovation and entrepreneurship in developing this new accreditation. So a lot of great input has come to us on this accreditation, looking at what does it really mean to be an innovative university? What does that look like? What does it infer in terms of what the university is doing, what sort of programs they have, and how those are being applied. So you'll see that as I walk through this presentation and explain a lot of the details to you, you'll see how that is being assessed, and this whole thing should come to life. So that's the nature of this accreditation. Now, the next question is, who is the Certified Innovative University Accreditation for? CINU accreditation is really for any university that takes seriously the call to empower innovation and entrepreneurship in its ecosystem on behalf of its stakeholders, and has therefore, as a result, taken very definitive steps to codify and formalize these in its operations, in its research, in its curriculum, in its pedagogy, with its faculty, in its facilities and other areas of practice. So that's who it's for. If your university or a university you're affiliated with or associated with has done these things, if it takes innovation seriously, and it has embedded that into these areas of its operations and its programs, then it is a university that would qualify for this accreditation. But it needs to take these steps to do that, as we'll see as we walk through this in more detail. What are the purposes of this CINU accreditation? The purposes of GINI CNU are fivefold. Number one, it is an objective measurement of the current level of innovation enablement capability. And I'll add that is the specific thing that we're looking for in these universities. We're looking for their capability to enable innovation and entrepreneurship. And we call that innovation enablement capability. It's not, the universities are different than a business organization. The business organization is about the capability to innovate in and of themselves or by themselves. Whereas with the university, it's about their capability to enable innovation on behalf of their students and their faculty and other stakeholders. So it's a little bit different type of capabilities that we're looking at, but this is an objective measurement of their current level of this innovation enablement capability. Number two, it lets the university learn how they become even more effective and impactful at empowering innovation by looking at the specific criteria that are being used and evaluated and working to strengthen each of those areas of their program. The university can become more effective and impactful at empowering innovation and entrepreneurship within their ecosystem. Number three, it lets the university showcase their long-term commitment to innovation enablement, again, on behalf of their stakeholders and community. So certainly having this accreditation is an excellent way for the university to show, its investors, its prospective students, its potential faculty, the commitment that it has to enabling innovation and entrepreneurship in its ecosystem. Number four, it's also a venue for benchmarking and sharing emerging practices. As more and more universities have this accreditation, they're able to benchmark each other and share practices with one another and see how those practices are evolving. And then finally, it allows the university to produce a positive impact on the world and the region by continuing to strengthen these particular areas and programs of the university. It ensures they are having the positive impact that they want and need to have on the world and on the region of the world. So those are the 5 purposes of the GInI accreditation. All of these, by the way, really serve to strengthen the university's ability to promote and sustain innovation and entrepreneurship within its operations. So how is the GInI accreditation obtained? GInI accreditation is obtained by working with one of GINI's authorized training and assessment providers, just like you would if you were pursuing our Certified Innovative Organization or our Certified Government Innovative Organization accreditations. It's the same process. You would work there with a provider, and the provider will have 2 GINI authorized innovation assessors come in and undertake a comprehensive on-site assessment of the university and its programs. So that's the process for obtaining the accreditation. It does involve having the assessors come in, undertake interviews and tours, and sit down with the leaders and ask a lot of questions, both the executive leadership of the university, some of the faculty, as well as speaking with a number of the students involved in, particularly in the innovation programs it has, to learn about the effectiveness of its innovation and entrepreneurship programs and to evaluate evidence of that effectiveness. So that's the process for obtaining this accreditation. How is it assessed and reported by the assessors? So the authorized innovation assessors will undertake this assessment using GINI's Innovation Enablement Capability Assessment Tool, otherwise known as the INICAT. And this is a tool that GINI has developed specifically and explicitly for undertaking this assessment of a given university. And after they undertake the assessment, they will report their findings to GINI using GINI's Innovation Enablement Capability Assessment Report, the INICAR. And this is a report detailing their findings from undertaking the assessment. That gets submitted to GINI. GINI reviews it as it would in any other accreditation, and then assuming everything is in order, it is shared with the university after that, once they receive their accreditation. What are the fees associated with this accreditation? GInI accreditation, like the other CNORG and CGINO accreditation, it involves a $5,000 administrative processing fee, which is paid annually to GINI on the anniversary of the last accreditation or reaccreditation date. That excludes the fees you'll need to pay to the provider and the ANAs that they retain on your behalf to do the assessment. So those are the fees involved in pursuing the accreditation. Now let's kind of dive into the whole meat of the accreditation, of the assessment process. What are the specific criteria that are being looked at during this assessment in order to hopefully achieve this particular accreditation? There are 9 specific criteria that are evaluated and weighted in the process as shown below. And I'm going to elaborate on each one of these with a slide for each one and explain them in more detail, specifically what we're looking at. But to look at the list here, we're looking at operations of the university, the research programs, the curriculum, the pedagogy and the pedagogical processes, the faculty, the facilities, the intellectual property and technology transfer program, the professional certification at the university, and the university's efforts for new venture incubation. So those are the areas, and you can see their weightings here. Some areas are weighted more heavily, such as the curriculum and the pedagogy and the research and the facilities and the technology transfer, and in particular the new venture incubation, while other areas are a little lighter weight, such as the operations and the faculty and the certification process. So those are the 9 areas. I want to explain each of them in a bit more detail so you understand what the assessors are looking at. So let's start with operations. In the operations, there are 2 categories and 3 subcategories involved. So the first category is looking at the presence of advanced operational practices. And specifically in terms of subcategories, we're looking at advanced digital capabilities that are used in operations. We're looking at a focus on sustainability innovation, and we're looking at the ethics and inclusivity that are incorporated into the university's operations. The second category is the actual application and success of those practices. So the actual subcategories are the same. We're looking at how these, for example, advanced digital capabilities have been applied and how successful they have been, how sustainability innovation focus has been applied and how successful it's been, and then how ethics and inclusivity have been applied and how much success they've had at the university in the university's operations. So those are the areas that are focused on in looking at the university's operations. And we're specifically looking for evidence of those particular subcategories. In the area of research, what are we looking at there? So there's 3 categories and 7 subcategories that are evaluated in the assessment. The first is looking at the presence of specific research programs. And in terms of subcategories, we're looking at what sorts of advanced research are being undertaken, what types of university industry partnerships are involved in the research, what types of global partnerships are involved in supporting the research, what focus there is on emerging technologies, what focus there is on AI and digital transformation, and what focus there is on sustainability innovation. So again, here we're just looking for the presence of these elements in the research program. The next category is the actual application of those, and we're just, in this case, looking at the advanced research activities and areas of focus to see how they're being applied for the university. And then finally, we're looking at the success of the research programs. And here we're looking at, how successful has the university been in its advanced research program? How successful has it been in pursuing things relating to AI and digital transformation? How successful has it been in cultivating global partnerships for its research? And then finally, how successful has it been in actually commercializing outcomes of the research? Those are important elements of the research. And so those are the 3 categories and subcategories of the research program that are evaluated. The third area is the curriculum. And this is important because this is specifically focused on the curriculum that's used to teach students about innovation and entrepreneurship. Here, there are 5 categories involving 9 subcategories, and the subcategories largely carry over from most of the categories. But the first thing we're looking for is a formal curriculum and the presence of a formal curriculum that addresses business innovation in general, that also addresses strategic innovation, which is looking at innovation from a very strategic perspective and how it relates to strategy, a focus on corporate innovation, how innovation is organized to within organizations to support an organizational innovation process, a focus on entrepreneurship, and what that means for students, and then finally a focus on emerging technologies. So again, we're looking for the presence of formal curriculum relating to these 5 areas. The second category is informal curriculum. And we're looking for the presence of things. And by what we mean here by informal curriculum is there are other subjects in the curriculum. The question becomes, how much are the topics of innovation and strategic innovation or corporate innovation or entrepreneurship and emerging technologies, how much are those woven into the rest of the curriculum and other areas? So it might be, for example, courses on finance or courses on marketing. And the question is, how much are we weaving into those courses insights and knowledge that relate to innovation and strategic innovation and emerging technologies and so forth? So that's what we're looking at there. The third area is the actual application of that curriculum, not just its presence, but is it being applied effectively? It's the same subcategories. We're looking at how well they're being applied. And then the fourth category is, again, the same thing, the application of the informal curriculum. Not just the presence, but how effective they're being as they're being incorporated into the rest of the curriculum. And then finally, the fifth category is the overall curricular success. So we're looking at in the overall curriculum and how much success we're having with it. We're looking at innovation overall. We're looking for focus on ethical and inclusive innovation. We're looking for the use of behavioral science and understanding human behavioral activities and the science of that and what goes into emotional and mental understanding of things. Is that being applied effectively? We're looking at emerging technologies and then the application of AI and digital transformation in the curriculum. So we're looking at how much success we're having in those specific areas in particular. So that's the focus on the curriculum. And again, that's very important because this is really the first point of contact many students have with innovation and or entrepreneurship is the curriculum that they're being presented by the university. This is often where they'll get their grounding and their foundation. So that's very important. The next thing we evaluate is the pedagogy and the specific pedagogical processes that the university is using. There's two categories here involving 12 subcategories. The first is the presence of advanced pedagogical practices. And we're looking for things like experiential learning, curricular freedom, where the faculty has the freedom to really develop the curriculum in the way they feel best benefits the students. We're looking for the use of project-based learning involving real-world projects and so forth. We're looking at the application of student teams working together as teams. We're looking at the use of behavioral science in the process. We're looking at a focus on diversity. And then finally, the use of AI knowledge management tools and practices in helping to support the pedagogical process. The second category is the actual effectiveness and success of the pedagogical practice. And we see this manifest in some different subcategories here. Specifically, we're looking at how well has this resulted in a culture of innovation within the faculty, as well as a culture of mutual success and support within the faculty. And then we're looking at the same thing in terms of the student culture. How well has these pedagogical practices produced a student culture of innovation and a student culture of mutual success? And likewise, how much have they helped promote diversity, particularly intellectual diversity, diversity of thought, diversity of perspective, and because those things really help promote innovation. And then we're looking at the overall effectiveness of the pedagogical processes and practices that are being used at the university. So that's the pedagogy area that's evaluated. The next is looking at the faculty, and there's really just one category here with three subcategories that we're looking at, and we're specifically looking at what experiences the faculty have. The goal here is to, or the thinking is that for faculty to be able to teach business innovation and or entrepreneurship, they're going to benefit by having actual experiences in those areas. So the first subcategories we're looking at what experience do the faculty have in actually driving innovation inside of business or leading innovation in business. The more experience they have, the better. Secondly, what experience do they have in entrepreneurship? How many faculty have been involved with startups in launching new startups? So that's important. in terms of teaching entrepreneurship. And then finally, diversity. What's the diversity of our faculty, the diversity of experiences and perspectives? That's important. So that's what we're looking for in terms of the faculty, is those areas. The more actual real world experience that the faculty have in delivering innovation or doing entrepreneurship, then the higher your rate in this area. The next area are the facilities, and this is a very important area as well. We're looking at 2 categories with 9 subcategories here. First of all is the presence of certain types of things. Now, we're looking for, and there's a subcategories over here, these 8 things. Places for contemplation. This is often
أها.
places for
مع
students.
السلامة.
وسلم.
كيف صحتك؟
الحمد لله بخير والله.
طمني كيف الأهل؟
الحمد لله
إن شاء الله بخير.
تمام والله الحمد لله
كيف مصر؟
بخير والله.
I'm sorry, someone there, please mute yourself. We're looking for in the facilities, we're looking for places for people to contemplate ideas and opportunities. So this is often places for the students to walk around and maybe the faculty too, and go and just think about new opportunities and ideas. So having those places for contemplation. Then specific innovation centers that can help facilitate innovation activities, prototyping facilities for prototyping concepts, testing facilities for testing them, the presence of high performance computing centers that students can access, the presence of places to focus on emerging technologies, the presence of places that help focus on sustainability innovation, and then also the use of digital and AI-based facilities. So this could be like a virtual innovation lab that students and faculty can use. So here, we're looking for the presence of these things at the university. Then secondly, we're looking at the actual application and success of these. So a lot of it's the same subcategories. Again, what is the actual application and success? It's one thing to have these things. It's another thing to actually use them well and produce success. So we're looking for evidence of that each of these areas are being applied well and effectively, and that they're actually producing success on behalf of the students and faculty and other stakeholders at the university. So we look at these the first 7 areas, and then we look at the overall success as well. So that's what we're looking at in terms of the facilities. And again, the facilities are very important for helping to support and enable the innovation activities that are otherwise happening at the university. The next area is the area of intellectual property and technology transfer. In many universities have a formal program that are often combined that focus on this area. So in this area, we're evaluating 2 different categories with 7 different subcategories. First of all, the first category is the presence of intellectual property and technology transfer practices, and ideally in a formal program. So in terms of the subcategories, we're looking at the intellectual property protections that the university is securing. We're looking at the technology transfer program that the university has. We're looking at program linkage, like how is this IP and technology transfer program being used to support other activities at the university, such as helping students and faculty launch new ventures. Like, are we taking some of the new technology and the IP, and we're letting faculty and students use that to launch new startups with it? So, what's the linkage between this program and the other programs that are supporting innovation and entrepreneurship? And then finally, we're here in terms of presence, we're looking at ethics, the presence of ethical practices in relation to securing IP and defending IP, as well as avoiding any infringement of other parties' IP. The second category is the actual application and success of these programs. So again, the first part was the presence. The second is looking at the actual application and success of them. So we're looking again at what's the application and success of the intellectual property protections, how much application and success we're having in terms of emerging technologies, how much success are we having with the commercialization of this intellectual property and this new technology. And then we look at what is the overall success in general of this program. And it's important for universities to have, for an innovative university to have a well-defined program for pursuing intellectual property and doing technology transfer and linking that to its other efforts to really promote and support innovation and entrepreneurship. The eighth category we're looking at is professional certification. And what we're looking at here is we believe, at least at GInI, we believe that having the students and faculty pursue professional certification and innovation is going to significantly strengthen and reinforce their ability to help students, help the stakeholders pursue innovation. So we have a category or an area here, or 4 categories where we're really focused on that. The first is looking at the presence of student certification. So we're looking at how many students have professional certification. We're looking at the presence of a GInI student chapter, and then we're also looking at the presence of university ambassadors at the university from GInI. So this is a defined role that GInI has that university students can take on, as well as some faculty, and become ambassadors, but specifically having students being certified and having a student chapter. Second, we're looking at, okay, they have that, but is it being used effectively? So what is the application and success of student certification? So again, we're looking at the same subcategories, but we're also looking at what's the overall success is this producing. And specifically, is having students certified and having a student chapter, is this producing success in terms of students becoming innovative, maybe launching startups or doing other things, or finding careers in innovation in industry. So that's an important question about how successful this is being. The third area is looking on the faculty side of things. So here again, we're looking at how many faculty hold professional certification and innovation, how many are involved in professional chapters, which in their case would probably be outside of the university in their local area for GInI, and then how many faculty are helping to support the students who are GInI University ambassadors. So we're looking for the presence of that, and then similarly, we're looking for the application and success of that. Not only is it present, but is having faculty certified and involved in chapters and supporting the ambassadors, is it having the success that it needs to have? So that's important. And that's the 4 categories we look at for professional certification. So again, this is an area that we believe is important for reinforcing and supporting the innovation there. So the very last area that we look at the university is what we call new venture incubation at the university. And again, in many cases, not always, I mean, ultimately, if we pause for a second and think about what is the student outcome here, and that's important, in terms of looking at all of this for an innovative university, what is the student outcome? And the hope is that students will have perhaps one of 3 different outcomes. Number one, maybe they have a role in some particular field. It could be any field, but they're able to now incorporate a lot more innovation practice into that field. The second outcome could be that they actually get a role explicitly and directly in innovation, whether it's in some sort of new business creation or area, or a technology development area, but it's an explicit role inside of industry in innovation. The third student outcome could be that they're actually part of a new startup. Maybe they're the founders of a new startup and they lead that, and perhaps working with faculty, perhaps licensing technology from the university, but whatever. So the ideal is for one of those 3 student outcomes to happen. And in terms of the third outcome, new venture incubation is an important element of that. So this is an area we also look at for university. And there's 3 categories and 10 subcategories to look at. So specifically, we start with, like we often do we even have the presence of these elements? And so we're looking for the presence of student-led entrepreneurship, where students are founding new startup businesses. We're looking for faculty-led entrepreneurship. Secondly, where faculty are starting new businesses and maybe bringing students in to work in that or be co-founders. We're looking for whether the university has a business incubator or access to a business incubator. Number 4, very similar, looking to whether the university runs an accelerator or venture studio or has direct access to an accelerator or venture studio. Number 5, we're looking at, does the university have an incubator that's focused on sustainability? Then we're looking at what sort of global partnerships the university has in supporting new venture incubation. Seventh, we're looking at the amount of diversity involved in the new venture incubation. Eight, we're looking at the investment vehicles that the university is bringing into this process. Do we have the presence of different investment vehicles, and how diverse are those vehicles? And then finally, advanced decision making, specifically around using more analytical tools for investment decisions. Is that present? So having those present is important. The next thing we look at is, okay, how well are those actually being used and applied at the university? So again, we're looking at a lot of the same areas. Student-led entrepreneurship, is that actually being effective? Is it being used well? Same with faculty-led entrepreneurship. Business incubator, an accelerator, or venture studio, are those being used and applied well? And again, the sustainability incubator, is that being applied well? And then finally, we're looking at the actual success, and this is really where the rubber meets the road. Okay, we have these things, they're being used well, but are they actually being successful? So again, we're looking at a lot of the same subcategories. We're looking at the incubator, the accelerator or venture studio, and the sustainability incubator. We're looking at the different investment vehicles that are being incorporated into this program. We're looking at the global partnerships. We're looking at advanced decision making. And in each case, we're asking, are these being successful for their goals and objectives? And then ultimately, we look at what is the overall success of the new venture incubation at the university. So that's the last main criteria we look at in evaluating the university and looking at its level of innovation enablement capability. So let's talk about the scoring and ranking for Certified Innovative University accreditation. The 24 categories that we just walked through that are part of the Innovation Enablement Capability Assessment are each scored on a scale of 0 to 10, and they're weighted to obtain an overall score for the university. The overall score is the weighted average of those category scores, and therefore it also ranges between 0 to 10. So that produces a final score from the assessment for the university. This allows the university then, depending on what their final score is, to be recognized as a certified innovative university at one of 5 possible levels, which are now each denoted by a specific number of stars. So if the score falls below 3, then they don't qualify for accreditation. If the score falls between 3 and 4.99, then they are accredited at level 1, which is 3 stars. If it falls between 5 and 5.99, then they are accredited at level 2, which involves 4 stars. If the score falls between 6 and 6.99, then they're accredited at level 3, which is 5 stars. And if the score falls between 7 and 7.99, that's level 4 with 6 stars. And if their score comes in at 8 or above, then that's the highest level, level 5, which is denoted by 7 stars. So the university will receive their score, and then they will get a ranking of 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 stars, depending on what that score was. And that will be a reflection of their level of innovation enablement capability maturity. Once a university has been accredited, how do they maintain that accreditation? To maintain the GInI accreditation each year, university has to do 2 things. Number 1, they need to pay the administrative processing fee annually each year on the anniversary of their assessment to renew it. And then every 2 years or every other year, they have to pass a full reassessment, again, by GInI, ATAP, and AINAs. This is to ensure that they are at least maintaining their programs, and ideally improving those programs and continue to qualify for accreditation. Because if they, for some reason, they discontinue these programs, they may no longer qualify for accreditation. So to ensure that they continue to qualify for accreditation, they have to do the reassessment every other year, as well as pay the processing fee each year. Also, there are the option to do pre-assessments. If desired, a university can engage an authorized training and assessment provider and its authorized innovation assessors to undertake for them a GInI pre-assessment. A pre-assessment is done to gauge the expected level of innovation enablement capability performance, and then to help the university better prepare for the formal accreditation assessment. It's completely optional if they want to do this, but they can always do a pre-assessment with some assessors, or at least one assessor, to come in and do a pre-assessment to give them an idea of where they presently sit with their level of innovation enablement capability, performance, and maturity, and then where they would likely come out with the formal accreditation. And they can choose at that point to pursue the formal accreditation, or they can say we want to work on bolstering certain areas of our program prior to pursuing that. That's their call, of course. So that's really it. If you want to learn more about Certified Innovative University, there's 3 areas you can look at. First of all, visit the GInI Certified Innovation University webpage, and that's found if you go to the GInI website and you look under the certification area and the part for business accreditation, there is a web page, and the URL is listed here for the Certified Innovative University accreditation. At that web page, you can also download the CINU guidebook. This guidebook explains all the details that I've just explained to you. And then after you've reviewed the web page and the guidebook, if you have any further questions about it, you can always email GINI at cinu@gini.org. And all of these will let you learn more about this accreditation. So with that, I want to open the floor to questions, comments that any of you may have about the CINU accreditation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about this. And while you might be thinking about those questions, and you can either put questions in terms of the chat, and I see a few already. I'll try to read those and answer them and address them. And or you feel free to turn on your microphone and ask a question. So let me look at some of the questions that we have here. In terms of strategic partnerships, does the evaluation include the application and adoption of outcomes innovation in the market? So I would say yes. I mean, specifically, there's a lot of areas where we're looking at, and let me stop the screen share since I don't think we need that now. But there's a lot of areas where we're looking at the actual application and success of the curriculum, the pedagogy, the new venture incubation. And part of the question that we're looking at is this actually producing outcomes, results, outcomes, and impacts in the marketplace? And that's going to be our students leaving the university with a strong knowledge of innovation and entrepreneurship. Are they able to apply that in the roles they take on thereafter? Are they getting jobs in innovation and industry? Are some of them launching new startups? And so we are trying to tie all of this to the actual outcomes, particularly the student outcomes that are happening in the university, and how that is manifesting in the marketplace in terms of what these students ultimately go on to do in their careers and so forth. So there's no explicit partnerships with any specific organization, but that is something we're looking for evidence of, that students are able to apply this and is producing some outcomes. So hopefully that addresses that question. Here's some more questions. How do we manage the potential conflict of an authorized university provider driving CNU accreditation process for self or other institutions? So this is a good question. Obviously, we would not permit if the university is designated as authorized university provider and they want to become a certified innovative university, we would not permit them to be that provider. They have to have an independent external provider, and independent external assessors come in who are not a part of the university to undertake the assessment and write the report, because otherwise we would reject the report. We would reject the accreditation. So there has to be that independent third party. They would have to retain an outside provider, and that provider would need to retain the assessors to come in and do the assessment. They can't be affiliated with the university. By the way, as a side note, we've also implemented for all of the accreditations a new policy that every cycle of assessment or reassessment needs to use a different set of assessors. So if you used assessor A and B this time, In 2 years, when it's time to do a reassessment, you need to use a different set of assessors. And this is ensure we have fresh eyes and we're not getting locked in on one perspective or have any other conflicts of interest. So we would definitely not permit an AUP to do its own assessment. That has to be an outside party. The next question: what are the expected timelines for the institution to understand the accreditation, to plan, implement, and create evidence over timelines, and then go for the assessment? I suspect this could be a long journey, and hence much larger engagement with the ATP and potentially a higher budget for adoption. So if a university is interested in pursuing the accreditation, first of all, they can secure from either GInI or a provider the assessment tool device. It has all the specific questions and areas that are being addressed. So they don't necessarily need to pay a provider up front to get access to that. They can secure access to that. And then they can look at the tool and start planning and generating the evidence they need. I mean, that process might take them 3 to 6 months, to come up with everything they need. It really depends on what they already have or don't have in terms of documentation. If they already have a very strong program in all 9 of these areas, and they have those areas documented, then maybe in a matter of a few weeks they could be ready for an assessment. But if some of these areas are more nascent or not well documented, then it's going to take them more time. I think worst case it would take up to a year to prepare for this, but I think that would be a situation where they're really nascent and young and immature in some of these areas, and they're starting out. So it could be a long journey, but it really all depends on how far along they are and how mature they presently are versus where they want to be. But they really only have to pay the provider once they're ready to do an assessment. That could be a pre-assessment, or that could be an official assessment. That's when they really engage the provider, but they can do the preparatory work prior to that. Question 3: in order to push for adoption, is there a way to link the CINU benefit and outcomes to any of the global, regional educational accreditations bodies? That's a great question. I think that's one for the future. We haven't got to that point on the journey yet, but that's something we can look at in the future. This is a new accreditation, and so that's something we can certainly look at. Question 4: is it better to make the 1 to 5 levels to avoid the confusion of stars? I apologize if that's confusing anyway. On the actual, I use that word level here in this presentation, but in the actual assessment process and the certificates for the accreditation, we don't use the word level. It's really just, is it 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars, 6 stars, or 7 stars? So just think in terms of stars and forget the phrase level. I use that for, I guess, as a habit here, as a matter of explanation, but just focus on the stars. Do you have 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 stars? Here's another question: do you have to have a specific certification to be a CINU assessor? That's an excellent question. Yes, you do. You have to be, the assessor has to be an authorized innovation assessor from GINI. So that's a specific certification that GINI offers. All assessors have to first be certified as either a certified innovation strategist or preferably a certified chief innovation officer, and then they have to go for the AINA, the Authorized Innovation Assessor certification. So any assessments that are done and any assessment reports that are written have to be written by authorized GINI authorized innovation assessors who are in good standing. That's the criteria, and part of the reason for us doing this webinar today is really to help the community understand the process on behalf of the assessors as well. Because for those who are AINAs, you may be asked to come in and do this assessment, and we wanted to give you this little bit of introduction to prepare you for doing that. So the next question: does the certification from GINI take into account the volume and quantity of universities' online content and digital education initiatives when evaluating their eligibility? I would say yes and no. I mean, it's all part, when we look at the curriculum and the pedagogy, it's all a part of that. So it's not so much whether it's in-person content or online content. Does the content focus on business innovation, strategic innovation, corporate innovation, entrepreneurship and emerging technologies. And whether that's in, in-person format or online and digital format or through digital education, all of those qualify as long as students have access to them. So let's say, for example, a university only had online content relating to that. As long as all students have access to that content, then they would get credit for having that part of their curriculum, and so forth. The harder part, I think, is in the pedagogical practices. Pedagogical practices, they do, some of them expand out into digital education, such as having students work in teams, for example, and doing other types of experiential learning. But some of them are much more easier executed in person on campus. So, I think, the university needs to look at how they're applying those different pedagogical practices, both in person and online. But certainly, all of the things they do, they'll get credit for, whether it's in person or online. The next question, is this certificate applicable on all education colleges like vocational and technologies education, or just on the universities? So to answer that question, I would say it applies to any type of higher education institution. It could be a vocational school, or technological school, not just a general university. But the question they have to ask themselves is, are we covering all 9 of these areas? Have we addressed our operations? Have we addressed our curriculum? Have we addressed our pedagogy? Have we addressed our facilities? What experience does our faculty have? Again, do we have formal programs for intellectual property and technology transfer? Do we have formal programs for new venture incubation? They need to have all of these elements. So aside from that, we're not concerned about the specific type of college or university they are. We're concerned about, do they have these elements in place? If they have these elements in place, then the type of university or college is less relevant. It's really looking for that content. So yes, we want to, I'm looking at some comments here. We want to really push for the adoption of this. GInI is running a special promotion, by the way, for any university who is the first in their nation to pursue this. GInI will waive its fees, and then the next 3 in that nation will offer 50% discount on our fees. So we're trying to offer some incentives to really drive the adoption of this new accreditation. And let me just add, I think it's important because I think, my personal opinion is, it's important for universities to be able to communicate to the world how capable they are and how mature they are in this area of innovation enablement. And, so I think it's important for universities to pursue this accreditation and to show specifically their level of capability and maturity to the world, so that when students are looking for universities that have explicit programs relating to innovation and entrepreneurship, this is an indicator they can look to say, that's a university that has this accreditation, and this is the level of capability they have. So I think this is very important for universities to have this and use it in being able to communicate that specific thing to their prospective students, and maybe when hiring faculty, to prospective faculty as well. Another question, how can the certificate support the university's QS ranking? Is there any direct relation between them? I would say at this point in time, there has been no direct correlation established between these at this point in time. I again think that's another area that potentially can be looked at in the future, that might have a future application. I think that's going to take some research. After universities start to secure this accreditation, then we can look at what the correlation is to other rankings and see, if there's any relationship or not. I don't know, because I think the criteria is different for each type of ranking. And in this particular case, for this particular accreditation, we have a very specific set of criteria that we're looking at. And again, we have different individuals in our community who have helped support the review of this from the academic field, and give a lot of input for those. I don't want to necessarily name names because I don't want to forget anyone, but I do want to thank those who in our community, and I know they're present on this call. I want to thank everyone who has given input into this accreditation. And I think it's fair to say that over time we can continue to refine and hone and improve this accreditation and its tool set for assessment. Certainly, this isn't necessarily the last version. This is the first version, so we can continue to improve this and add to it and evolve it. So, but I think going back to my original point, there are very specific criteria that this assessment is looking at. When we look at other rankings that universities have, there's different criteria that are used, and those criteria are important to their objective, to what they're trying to show. Our criteria are important to our objective and what we're trying to show. And what we're trying to show is how capable is this university and how mature is this university specifically for enabling innovation and entrepreneurship. And it applies to every, no matter what the students' majors are, every field, every discipline, this applies. So that's our objective, and that's the criteria that we use. The criteria reflects trying to demonstrate that objective. This is, as looking at some of the comments here, this is a defining moment for innovation in higher education institutions. The question is, does the ATAP have to be different for reassessment or only the AINAs? Only the AINAs. It can be the same ATAP, but they would need to bring in different AINAs for the reassessment. So you can retain the same ATAP. So another comment here, I think there's a good chance that this accreditation can be considered in ranking because there are similarities in terms of innovation criteria. And thank you for that comment, and I believe that's certainly true. I would love to see this particular accreditation become a key ranking factor for different universities, particularly as universities, compete with one another for trying to say, we are a university that truly embraces innovation and promotes innovation and teaches innovation to our students and really engages our faculty and staff in supporting that and supporting the students and supporting the process. And as an overall institution, we, it's not just about helping them be innovative, but we are part of a grander innovation ecosystem supporting our community. Those who come to us as students, those who come to us as faculty, those who who are our alumni, all of that community. How do we support that community in developing capabilities to innovate and become innovators and entrepreneurs, and then succeed at that? And that's the goal, is that the universities become a hub for their local innovation ecosystem, and as a result, they're going to produce more and more outcomes and results and have more impact in markets and for their community, and they're going to really empower their community of students and faculty and others to really produce a lot of impact. So going back to the point, I would love for this to become truly a benchmark standard for universities to use as a demonstration of how well they are doing in this area of promoting innovation and entrepreneurship in their ecosystems and for their communities. So I think there's a lot of potential there for the future. So yeah, we've got a few last minutes here left, and so as we approach the top of the hour, here's another question I'll address. The question is, can a specific faculty of a university or affiliated colleges apply as well? So this is a business accreditation for universities. So the accreditation is not for individuals, it's for universities. So in terms of this specific accreditation, it is only for the colleges and universities to apply. The faculty, as an individual, can certainly pursue a professional certification with GInI as a certified innovation professional or innovation strategist or chief innovation officer. Certainly they can use that as part of their credentials, and they should if they're part of one of these universities. But this particular accreditation isn't for the faculty, it's for the actual university or college. But again, having faculty who are certified is one of the areas of evaluation in this assessment, and so that's an important tie-in to this accreditation. Are there any other questions or comments? These are excellent questions, by the way. Excellent comments, and I really appreciate it. And I look forward to, the future application and use and evolution of this particular accreditation, because I think it has a lot of potential for helping universities, number one, develop their innovation enablement capabilities, and number two, really demonstrate that and communicate it to the world, and help attract students who gravitate toward innovation to their schools. And it's going to just become a self-reinforcing cycle where students who gravitate to that, who are interested in it, go to these particular universities, and the universities will have this, attract those universities, and that's going to help them to invest further in developing these capabilities and this maturity, become stronger as an innovative university, and help their students and their ecosystem and their stakeholders become much more successful and effective as innovators and founders and so forth. So I think it stands to have a tremendous amount of impact. So here's a comment, traditional rank, a couple of comments. It's a well thought out accreditation program, less likely for innovation theater to occur. You're right, because in any assessment like this, we're looking for documented evidence of these things, and we're looking, particularly specifically when we're looking at the application and success areas of things, not just the presence of them. That's actually a great point, because that's why, by the way, we look at not just the presence of things, but the actual application and success of them, because a lot of organizations who practice innovation theater, they have these things present, but they don't use them effectively and they don't have success. So we start with presence, but we also look at what's the actual application and effectiveness and ultimately the success of things, because that weeds out, to use a colloquial phrase, that separates the men from the boys. That weeds out the pretenders from the actual doers. And so, if a university cannot demonstrate with documented evidence for the actual outcomes and success and application of these areas, then they're not going to achieve the accreditation. Another comment here is traditional ranking systems are yet to undertake a paradigm shift. We're seeing signs of that, as well as the emergence of new higher education institute models. CINU will provide the necessary guidance for universities to pivot and for ranking organizations to reconsider their criteria. I totally 100% agree with that, and that comes from our friend Suleiman Barada. And Suleiman, I want to thank you particularly for your input here and for that comment. I think this accreditation, by the way, and this assessment can be used as a part of a bigger, larger, broader assessment accreditation process for universities, and I think it will help paint the picture that will be a paradigm shift for other assessments and so forth. So hopefully that's another comment about this being a comprehensive illustration. You're welcome for that. It is tried to be a comprehensive explanation of that. So you're welcome for that. And again, if you have additional further questions about this in the future, reach out to GInI. If you are a provider and an assessor, reach out to GInI, ask for the accreditation materials. If you're a university who's interested in pursuing this, you can also ask GInI or one of the providers to see the the assessment tool that looks at explains the specific questions that are asked and looks at the process in more detail, and that will help you to prepare for it. And otherwise, if you're a leader at one of the universities, we certainly encourage you to think very hard about getting serious about this accreditation and pursuing it, and becoming accredited and demonstrating that to the world. But yes, so again, reach out to GInI and we can support you in providing what you need to pursue this. And I look forward to seeing which universities end up being the first in their nations to become accredited and really start promoting this around the world. So again, you can email GInI at cinu@gini.org with any further questions. And with that, I will wrap it up and say thank you everyone for your participation and attendance today, and thank you for all who watched the recording of this. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you and the universities you're affiliated with gain a lot of value for this. I look forward to a great future with that. So with that, I will sign off. Until next time, we'll see you next month. Take care, everyone. Thank you very much.